Yeah, cry me a river, Sean.
Cry me a river, not a stream. Cry me a river, don't be mean.
You should make that up.
Yeah.
For all I know, that could be a huge hit. That's how much I'm paying attention.
Well, I mean, I didn't make the whole thing up. Of course, that's the great Justin Timberlake.
Cry Me a River. Okay, Joe Cocker did a song called that years ago, but you say what you like.
Well,
Who's JT? Who's JT?
Justin Timberlake.
It's James Taylor, but you were close.
See, I'm very confused. All right. Ah! Got to get that energy going. Ah! Ah! It's very...
Jesus, when it gets here, what's it going to be like?
Ah!
It's the Countdown to 5 podcast, snaking our way to the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
We're recapping, revisiting, once-overing, and celebrating the 4 films in the Indiana Jones franchise that have graced our movie screens up till now. Paul Preston of the Movie Guys here with you, and who could that other voice be? It's my co-host, the show's diligent editor, a job nobody wants, and owner-operator of Creative.
I am an owner-operator of Creation.
This is why I wanted to have this whole show, just to tell you, Creative Motion Entertainment. Can we just make it Creation Entertainment? There you go. I've saved you some money right there. It's Creative Motion Entertainment's founder and, as far as we know, CEO, Sean Blodgett.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Hope you're doing great out there. We're having a great time here. I'm hitting mics. We're setting up cameras. Everything's great. It's fantastic.
The energy's here.
Woohoo!
We weren't sure it was going to be before the show.
I wasn't sure, man. You know, in Southern California, having like cloudy days every day, that's a lot. You know, it brings your emotional tone down. You got to really fight to like have that joy.
You're going to hear this mid-June, but we recorded this June 1st. So I'm fresh off the Ted Lasso finale. I'm surprised I'm doing this at all. That was a roller coaster. Emotions high. I mean, do my eyes, did I?
They're a little wider.
I hit them with the clear eyes. I had to. Cry, hard crying, hard cheering, hard laughing, all ugly.
I mean, there's nothing better than watching a piece of media, television show, streaming media, movie, whatever.
Well, yeah. I'm curious to see how you bring the emotion back into it when you've called it a piece of media.
Okay?
You know, I like coldest term for...
I like looking at a nice piece of media. No, but I mean, there's nothing better than watching something and actually having it move you.
Oh my God.
I mean,
All
that is just... What was I don't know. I was watching something the other day, and it was just something very simple, and I was like, man, this is really making me feel things. Oh, my God.
I was a wreck.
Okay, anyway.
Where are we? We're in the Mighty Admirals Club in Burbank, California, and as of this taping, I mentioned it was June 1st, so we're 29 days away from the release of The Dial of Destiny on June 30th. Today, we're talking all about the first of 3 pairings of Indiana Jones with James Bond. Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. Because you see, Sean Connery, he was James Bond, you see. And then Ford later appeared with Daniel Craig in Cowboys and Aliens, you see. So now, do you know the third pairing of Harrison Ford with a Bond?
No.
You got to go to television. And Ford's all over TV these days. It was shrinking in 1923. And in 1923, Timothy Dalton plays a very aggressive sort of bad guy. Oh. I can't see this guy being redeemed, but he's a pretty bad land baron who wants to take all the land from
That's a great role for him, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Much better than James Bond, actually. No offense, but...
No, I like this James Bond. He was tough as nails, and that was kind of missing from Roger Moore, which was cool. But, obviously, I only got 2 movies out of him. But he's been good in a lot of stuff, so I'm glad he keeps working. Penny Dreadful, The Rocketeer.
Right.
And now he's very good in this. And I remember seeing Ford and Dalton on the red carpet, and they were like, hey, and just watching them, like, say hi after, who knows how long before the red carpet they were taping and seeing each other. So it was a nice reunion. I was like, oh, Indian Bond.
Right.
The best.
Actually, speaking of Bond, it's interesting that you bring up Bond in general, because I know we've talked a little bit about how Spielberg wanted to do a Bond movie. That's how this whole Indiana Jones thing started, and that was like sort of the onus of getting this going, right? And I was thinking to myself, I kind of feel like we were robbed a little bit of more Indiana Jones movies.
Oh, absolutely. We should have 9 Indy movies. We should have about a dozen Ghostbusters movies. Yeah, there are franchises that just didn't make enough. That we love what we got, but I wish we had more.
I mean, there's just no. When I look back on it, because I know they released some books that were like some other stories or adventures that Indiana Jones had and all of that stuff. And I was thinking about it. I think it was a comment you made that like, we should have had more movies. And and it really hit me. I was like, yeah, we really should have had. I mean, we should have like 9, 10, 12. I mean, this should be like James Bond, because as we mentioned in the last episode, every movie is really kind of standalone, even though they, we feel the arc of the story of the character. And
in this movie, you're going to see Sala again, so clearly it ties to the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tie-in, but there's tie-ins to James Bond too. We always had Q. We've always got, you know what I mean? We've always got all these consistent, and then there's the new characters, the new love interest, and all of that stuff, which is very similar in terms
love
of
interests.
Love interests. Yes, yeah. I mean, but I don't know. It just really got me thinking, man, I wish we would have had more.
See, Indy's ties to Bond. These are the fun facts we bring to the table. And we insist all of our facts be fun.
Yeah, that's
now,
right.
Sean, I mentioned Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Do we have any updates on that film?
We have so many. Well, not so many. We've got a few. Yes, we have updates. Yes. Okay. That bit hasn't been done before. First, actually, okay, the big one is Harrison Ford was visibly moved when receiving a surprise honorary Palme d'Or. Did I say that right?
I believe so.
Palme d'Or.
Someone French will chime in if you didn't.
At the Palme d'Or. Is that better? The Palme d'Or.
At the Cannes Film Fest.
At Cannes.
Correct.
And, I mean, very much deserved. I'm excited that he is getting these accolades. I'm excited that he's out there just doing he is a movie star, and maybe, I don't know, in some ways like the greatest movie star.
I mentioned a show we do at the Movie Guys called the Ford Fiesta. We're looking at every Harrison Ford movie, and we were going to do a What's New with Harrison Ford segment at the top of the show, then get to that week's movie. Something from his career, we're going chronologically. But that segment's become huge because he's so busy. 1923, Shrinking, Dial of Destiny. He's doing campaigns for different things. He's showing up on all the shows. He was on Good Morning America. He did Cannes. He got this award. He's like so busy.
There's a pretty funny, did you see the Good Morning America, what happened on that show?
I've seen clips from it. What did I miss?
There was a moment, I think it was Good Morning America, where, they were like, so how was it, doing the like de-aging in this movie, and like what was that like for you? And he was like, I was a little against it in the beginning, but it's a little different learning how to perform with all these balls on your face. And he just lost it, and the crew lost it. It was just
no, I didn't know. That's good.
So anyway, yeah, he's all over the place,
and I should mention the Palme d'Or was scheduled for Michael Douglas, and they gave him one. So this was a surprise to everybody that they gave a second honorary Palme d'Or to Harrison Ford. And then, of course, they give out the Palme d'Or every year to the best film, which was a French film. We might want to look into that. French film wins Cannes Film Festival. Anyway, but Harrison Ford was a bonus. So it was, I mean, of course, to your point, it absolutely deserved.
Now, so Michael Douglas also got one?
Yes.
But
that was planned again. So everyone came in, Michael Douglas was going to get one, and then Harrison Ford got one too, and everyone was
I wonder how he felt about that.
Different night.
I mean, still, you're like, hey!
Wait a second.
Hey! Romancing the Stone?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see what else. Dial of Destiny also played at Cannes. Reviews were mixed. So, yes. I mean, there's some stuff to chew on there. I'm trying to stay away from that stuff. I just don't want to be... I don't want to be too tainted, When I look back on when we did Countdown to 9, I wonder if I had watched too much about Rise of Skywalker by the time we got to it, that I was like, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah. I don't know.
I think you appreciated it by the time we covered it on the post-movie show, though, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. I mean, and I still have an appreciation for at least the filmmaking of it and the film itself, But I don't know. This is such an interesting situation with this. He has really come out strong and said he is Indiana Jones. No one else is going to play Indiana Jones. I still question that, personally.
I still say No one could, but go ahead.
Well, and the other thing that it brings up too is, obviously we're in Hollywood here, or near Hollywood, being in Burbank, and right now, of course, the writer's strike is happening, and we just had a vote for SAG-AFTRA as to whether or not we would be willing to strike as well, should there be a need for it. And there's a lot of things on the table that are really important. There's a lot of things that 100% need to be dealt with, especially for the writers and all of the changes that have happened with seasons. And definitely support the writers. But there's one thing that I think is getting, I don't want to say it's getting skirted, but it's there's a lot of anger towards it, and there's a lot of confusion around it, and rightfully so, because it's new, and that is AI. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a little bit about AI, but I tend to think that what, as an industry, we need to do is double down on the idea that AI is not going anywhere, and it's here to stay. And what I wish our unions were really focusing on is how can we incorporate the technology into the safeguards of our work. So, in other words, like, for instance, what if there were only certain AI platforms that writers oversaw, so they could utilize AI as a tool, but they would oversee it, and they would have control over it, and ultimately those writers would own the copyright or whatever, own the rights to it, so they would get the residuals and all of that stuff. Because I think what happened, having been around for the previous writer's strike and how much that really did affect my career in a very big way, I feel like at that time the industry was very much doubled down on streaming. It's new media. I mean, they called it new media for 10 years, and it was like, it was here, guys. Yeah. It was absolutely ridiculous. They were way behind the times, and by the time they realized that it wasn't new, that they needed to double down and actually embrace it and be a part of it, everything was already done. It was in the works. So now we're backtracking, trying to get contracts we should have got 10 years ago. And I feel like we're a little more on top of the AI thing now, but there's still sort of a focus on the anger towards it, and on like, just I want to get rid of it. I don't want to use it. They shouldn't be allowed to use it. And it's like, look, this is a technology that's here, and it's no different than when HD came on the scene, and suddenly all of these television shows went from shooting film to shooting digital. And that changed all of the contracts for the actors suddenly, and that was happening when there was a big, negotiation happening with the motion picture producers, and all of that stuff had a huge effect. And it was, again, people just going, oh, we're not going to really focus on this. We're going to focus on this over here. And I get that they need to focus on the contracts and those things and all of that, but this is real, and this is happening, and it's here, and it's not going away. So and for actors, I'd like to see that same sort of safeguard. What if there's some way, because look, at some point, maybe not now, but 25, 30 years from now, some executive is going to go, we need to bring back Indiana Jones. Now, I'm sure at that point, Harrison Ford's 120.
He looks great.
He's gonna look great, but he might not be able to do everything. So they're gonna be like, let's just do like face replacement. Let's just do a complete. It'll still be him, but we're gonna make a new movie. Let's find a sound alike, and that guy's gonna do the voice, and at some point, I think that's gonna happen. I think the idea that we're going to be able to continue to do work the way we've done it and the way it's always been done, it's already being proven that that's not going to happen. Generative AI is already taking actor jobs. One of the like bread and butter jobs that a lot of us have done is like spokesperson jobs, industrial films, those kinds of things. There's generative AI avatars that can be created to do, basically talking head videos. Now, are they as good as an actor, as a live actor? Of course they're not. You're not going to get instincts and, things like that. But if we're talking about somebody who doesn't have a huge budget and wants to put together an advertisement with with some sort of spokesperson, if you've seen some of these AI avatars that are out there, they look pretty photorealistic sometimes, especially if it's just talking head with some graphics in the background and they're talking about a product and yada yada, this is how it works, and boom, now I've got my ads for Facebook. So I think the danger to me is ignoring it. The danger is trying to say let's put it away, let's get rid of it, let's not let them use it. Let's us embrace it and let's us control it. Let's figure out what are the companies that are doing it, and let's get them in bed with SAG. Let's get them in bed with the WGA. Let's get contracts with those companies and let's get control of this before the producers just go run and do their thing, because they're going to run and do their thing, because at the end of the day, that's their business.
First of all, once Harrison Ford's dead and gone, and everyone who would have hired him for this is dead and gone, they can do what they want. I don't want to see them put his face on a thing. I don't want another Sam Spade movie where Humphrey Bogart's face is put on some actor. So hopefully they don't do that. I don't need to see that. They can do later when it's But while he's here, maybe this is the end of the Indiana Jones run. Fine.
Yeah. Also,
guys in the coal mine. Yeah, maybe solar's not going away. Maybe get a job in solar. You'll live longer, I think is your point.
This is really exciting. All 4 Indy films, including the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, are now on Disney Plus for you to get all caught up and enjoy. I think it's awesome. So exciting.
Couple things about that. First of all, the advertisements are all about the 4 films. There's not a lot being said about the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. And man, the stuff I've read about that show recently has me really excited to see it. I never have, and I can't believe I never did. I think it was like a Harrison Ford only, or nothing, kind of guy. And I was very young too, as far as when it came out, so I was very busy, so I never got to it. But man, the stories I've heard lately about what that show actually did and how Brian Crew, who was on the Ford Fiesta, said that they. Lucas knew it was going to end, so he ended up filming all this footage that was tying some of the episodes together so he could make mini movies. So I'm curious to see if it's still episodes or if maybe it's the movies he's always wanted to see put together up on Disney Plus. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm going to race through that. I know we wanted to do that for the ramp up for Dial of Destiny as part of the show, but who are we kidding? We're creaking through these shows.
I mean, we're barely exactly.
I mean, you've got 2 kids, and I've got stuff going on, so we get to what we get to.
Well, I'll say this: the first episode we did of this, if you remember, I did watch an episode of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, sort of to get ready for this, and I remember saying, yeah, it was fine, and it was fine. I don't know. I have to watch the whole thing to really have an opinion, I guess. But the first episode was fine. It was perfectly acceptable. Was it great? And did it oh my gosh, I have to watch the rest of this? Not so much for me.
I will say this: it was a big deal when Marvel films came out on Disney Plus in IMAX format. There was a way to put them up there, stretched to fill the whole screen. I don't know why they don't do that with other movies. I would love to see that done with the indie films. I'm going to have to check out and see if they have that, but if it hasn't been announced that they do, I don't think they do.
What are they showing them in 16:9? Is that?
Yeah, there's some sort of IMAX format that allows them to fill that screen. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not cropping it. From what I know, they're not. It's not pan and scan. Thank God.
Right.
But it's some sort of new, and it's not all the Marvel titles, but it's a bunch of them. It's like 16 of them or so are all in this format.
It's been interesting. Some of the footage that I've come across online, seeing the comparative of different versions over the years that have been released. And, of course, some people are ripping from DVDs. Some people are, pulling something from Blu-ray or whatever to, have their chat about it. And the Blu-ray stuff just looks so fantastic.
Always. The darks are darker. The colors are sharper.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Streaming doesn't match it at all.
No.
Oh, my. I was watching Better Call Saul's finale, and I was like, this is pixelated, and it's of course all dependent on your Wi-Fi as well, so it can be a big mess. The physical media will always be the best. Blu-ray is the best.
Yep.
4K probably even more so. I haven't gotten one myself, but I've seen them, and they're pretty sharp.
Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. But
don't let that stop you, if you've never seen an Indiana Jones film, from hitting Disney Plus and checking it out.
I mean, right? 100%.
All right, well, let's get on to our recap of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And if you're one of those people who I just mentioned haven't seen these movies, oops, we're going to recap it anyway. But we're not going to. Let's go to the source and let Indy himself tell you what the film is about.
That's right. He is a legend. The film is a legend. The recap is perfectly acceptable. No, the recap is great. I mean, because it is directly from the legend.
My next adventure starts like all good Lucasfilm adventures. by taking an adult character you know and love and making him a kid. But am I doing kid stuff like going to the Olympics or reading Tarzan books? No. I'm back in the damn desert again. This time in Utah, spelunking with my fellow Boy Scouts. Not that there's a spelunking merit badge either, which is a shame because it's fun to say spelunking. Well, where I spelunked, I ended up eyeing a bunch of looters who came across the priceless Cross of Coronado. Would have been a shame if that symbol of the horrible mistreatment and abuse of indigenous people fell into the hands of some bad guys. So I snatched it and ended up on a wild chase on horseback until I ended up in a train that housed the magically marvelous Backstory Circus. Bullwhips, scars, snakes, all get explained. But somehow I never ended up with a nagging lifelong fear of getting speared in the crotch by a rhino horn. I end up back home only to find that Dad doesn't get my back. The looter's boss has bought off the law, and I have to give back the cross. Would have been a great time for Dad to speak up. Well, as you can imagine, I funneled this frustration all the way to 1938, where I killed a whole boatload full of people to get the cross back, because, you know, it belongs in a museum. Speaking of Dad, it turns out he's gone missing, and when Mr. Moneybags, Walter Donovan, tells me this, do I just suddenly go quiet and do nothing? No, Dad, I do something, and hop on a plane with Marcus for Venice. Anyway, Donovan also told me that as sure as coconuts migrate, Dad was seeking the Holy Grail. Yes, the Holy Grail. From the Last Supper? Turns out Dad sent me his Grail diary, but I'd been too busy fending off the advancements of my students to check it out. But I'm sure it had all kinds of interesting Grail facts in it, and probably the Last Supper wine list. By now, you're probably thinking like I was. This is quite the sausage party, isn't it? Thankfully, Elsa Schneider shows up to give me someone to flirt with, and then we enjoy more spelunking. Catacombs beneath the Venice Library contain a clue as to the Grail's whereabouts, and just as Elsa and I get that information, rats. Not rats sent after me by villains, but rats that just are always under the streets of Venice. I mean, that's a good travel tip, kids. Don't go to Venice. Anyway, after our escape, we're then chased by the Order of the Cruciform Sword, which are sworn to protect the Grail at all costs, until, of course, they realize that I'm just there to rescue my dad. Then they calm down a lot. They also tell me my dad is in a castle on the German-Austrian border. And oh yeah, Elsa and I do it. Now, in order to get into the castle, I must call on my most prized skill in being an archaeologist. That summer I did community theater in 1916. I pretend to be Scottish, until I realize no one cares and I hit low-rent Otto Preminger in the schnoz, which I should have done in the first place. Looking back, I actually can't believe I just shared that embarrassing moment with you. Anyway, turns out Nazis are behind my dad's kidnapping, and Elsa's one of them. I scrubbed and scrubbed my groin in the shower that night, I can tell you. But I did find Dad, and after he called me Junior, I shot a handful of Nazis at close range, which is really how I should have handled the guy who answered the castle door. It's not long, however, before Dad and I are tied up and more info is spilled, like Donovan is also a Nazi, and oh, Dad slept with Elsa. I scrubbed and scrubbed my groin in the shower that night, I can tell you! Dad and I escape on a motorcycle and eventually engaged in what can only be called plain zeppelins and automobiles. This included a stop in Berlin to get the Grail diary back from Elsa and have a face-to-face with Hitler. Bad breath, by the way. No surprise. And did I mention Saul is back in the mix? He tells Dad and I that the Nazis now also know where the Grail is. So it's a game of who gets there first. And they have a slow-moving tank. Idiots. But Dad gets himself captured in sight of it. Idiot. It's on me then. Just on horseback to dispatch all the Nazis and save Dad, which I do because I'm Indiana Jones. I do archaeology and Scottish accents. The Nazis arrive at the Grail Temple first and keep losing low-level guys to the temple's traps. Then we're caught. And I'm the one who has to get past the traps and retrieve the Grail. Why? Because Donovan shot Dad. Turns out Dad's diary scribblings weren't all, who's the hottest female archaeologist and why, although that's in there. His other nonsense helped me get past the traps and meet an ancient knight. I wasn't sure if the knight had ill intentions, but regardless, I was prepared with a shrubbery. Turns out he was all, drink from the right cup and you'll live. Donovan didn't take his advice, so he turned to dust. But I knew the cup of a carpenter, and was able to use it to save Dad. Elsa got all raccoon on me and was so distracted by the shiny grail she fell to her death like a Disney villain, leaving myself, Dad, Marcus, and Sala riding off into the sunset. Until the sun rose again, I guess, and I come back for 2 more adventures.
Well, that's everything you've wanted to know about The Last Crusade. Our apologies for spoilers if you're lame and haven't seen this movie.
I mean, not everybody who hasn't seen the movie is lame. I mean, well, maybe most of them.
Yeah. No. As a father, when you pick up your kid at school and you see all the other kids, you're like, half these losers haven't seen Last Crusade. What a shame. But speaking of that movie, let's go back to the beginning when it came out. So 1989, well, what a summer. Now, just before this, we were talking about how this summer of 2023 feels like the old ones. There's a big event movie every weekend. Fast X, Little Mermaid, Across the Spider-Verse, Flash, Elemental, Indy, Mission Impossible. It's like on and on and on every week, something huge up through Haunted Mansion. So, but 89. So you mentioned 84, which is probably one of the greatest ever when Temple of Doom came out,
right,
along with Karate Kid and Gremlins and all sorts of stuff. But the summer, May 24th, Last Crusade comes out in the summer of 89, surrounded by Dead Poets Society, Ghostbusters 2, Batman, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Lethal Weapon 2, License to Kill.
I love the Lethal Weapon movies. They
Absolutely.
were great movies.
Yeah. License to Kill, speaking of Dalton, it was a big hit. When Harry Met Sally, Parenthood, The Abyss, the list goes on. It was a huge
Parenthood
summer.
is a fantastic motion picture.
One of the greats.
Great.
One of the greats. And right in the middle of it all is Last Crusade, a huge hit. And it's at a budget of, this is laughable, $48 million. They made it for $48 million.
I mean, you couldn't touch that today.
Yeah, you can't make a Marvel movie under $200 million.
You can't make a commercial for a Marvel movie for that. I mean...
But true to Harrison Ford's drawing power in the 80s, $474.2 million worldwide gross, 197 domestic. That puts it actually number 2. Do you know what the number 1 film was that summer?
Karate Kid.
No, that was 84.
Oh, whoops.
Follow along. 89.
89. Karate Kid. No. No, I don't know.
Batman.
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
Batman
I mean, that makes sense.
We've been waiting for Batman. It was new at the time. Now Batman movie's like another one of these things. But, with all the sequels in there, Ghostbusters, Lethal Weapon, Indy, Batman took number 1.
That makes sense. I mean, it was a great film.
Now, because of inflation, now this is dumb when you always look and see, like, movies are so much more now to go and see that they make more, so it doesn't even break the top 200. Lorax, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Venom are all above The Last Crusade, which is disheartening.
Oh, my God.
It's time for a new chart.
Adjusted, although people love Venom, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it.
Also on Disney Plus. Adjusted, it's up there at like 115.
Wow.
But movies like Rear Window, House of Wax, and Duel in the Sun are above it. Like if you paid today's money for House of Wax, that's how much of a hit that movie was. With I believe, I don't even know if that's the remake or the Vincent Price original. But
when did Temple come out again? It was 83.
84.
84. Oh, that's right, 84.
Yeah.
And so
when Karate Kid came out.
Right, of course, I should know that. So 89 was this one.
Correct. We only waited 5 years. Now we have to wait double-digit amounts of years for an Indiana Jones movie, to your point of there are too few of these.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out why it wasn't bigger.
It's pretty damn big. Number 2 for the year. It was
yeah,
big.
But you know what I'm saying, comparatively now.
Well, listen, you want to know the number 1 movie if you just take the money without adjusting for prices? It's Crystal Skull. That's the number 1 indie film because it came out in 08 and it cost 5 times as much to see that as it did Raiders.
Right.
But so here are the taglines to get you excited. He's back in an all-new adventure. That's all you needed. That's all you needed. Have the adventure of your lifetime, Keeping Up with the Joneses. That's a great tagline, Keeping Up with the Joneses. And the man with the hat is back, and this time he's bringing his dad. We all assume.
That one I love.
Right. It's not Abraham Lincoln. We all know.
It was, yeah.
Right. It's not Davy Crockett.
Yeah.
Also famous for hats.
Yeah.
But I like the Joneses one. That's cool.
Yeah. I like the fact that he's bringing along his dad. In my research for this, I had a hard time finding behind the scenes stuff. There was just a limited amount, but of course, the stuff that exists is very focused on the fact that Sean Connery's there. But I didn't realize how much of an effect he had on the development of that character. I mean, he was really very responsible for, the Indiana Jones father that we got. It wasn't just like, he acted it well. Those were his ideas. So much of that, the development of how his character ended up being. I think George Lucas originally wanted to have something a little bit more stoic, a little bit less emotional, and I think it was probably ultimately going to be a little less funny. And rightfully, Sean Connery was like, no, this is a great opportunity to do this and this, and no, we need to add this element. And he had lots of notes and lots of meetings with them, and I think their openness to the development of the character beyond what they had conceptualized also speaks to them as producers and filmmakers. Like, the collaboration of creating these movies is part of the beauty of it. And to that point, and I know we'll get to it, but in terms of crew, everybody's back, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these guys had a well-oiled machine. I mean, Raiders went really well right out of the gate, but now this is their third film. They're good to go. Yeah, interestingly, there was an original script. Spielberg really wanted to do something with the father, with Indy. He's like, who does Indiana Jones come from? Let's get into his origin of like what makes him him and all of that. And Lucas originally wanted to do something, I think, in sort of the spooky realm, some sort of like castle set in, I don't know, somewhere. So I think that's why we ended up with the Scottish moment.
My favorite scene.
Yeah, your most favorite scene, which I still think is an awesome scene. I love it.
He's never had to be a character to get in and out of a jam. He just beats people up.
It's the next level. It's next
characters. Level. Next he's going to come in, hello, I'm so-and-so. I'm Fribbity Gibbet, and I'm looking, where's the tea? And then he beats the guys up. Just beat the guys up.
In my research, I also had a chance to hear about some of the deleted scenes, things that maybe they shot, didn't end up, or whatever. I don't think they got edited, but people were talking about it. Anyway, speaking of that scene, after he punches the guy, there was a sequence where he basically puts that guy into like some kind of like tomb or coffin thing or whatever, shuts it, and then they like go, hunker down and go through the castle. I guess they felt like they needed to justify, like, well, where did they hide the body? After they punched him, I'm like, no, we don't need that. Which of course the editor, who by the way, he had one little section in this documentary that I loved, and he was chatting about editing, and I loved what he said because he was talking about the feeling, the feeling of an edit. He brings something to Steven and be like, this is the sequence, and he's like, if you edit from a heady place, you get something more intellectualized. But when you feel something, this is where the cut goes. This is where this, he's looking at the thing, and you cut to the, that, I don't know, to me that just makes so much more sense cinematically. Especially now with YouTube, there's so many people that are like, "This is how you edit," and it's like some 14-year-old kid telling you.
It's always way too loud. You ever watch those tutorials when it's like, "Thank you for tuning in to my tutorial." Well, today we're going to learn how to take a clip and reverse it.
Yeah,
geez.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
like, you edit?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
You don't edit audio?
No.
I have a list of some things that were supposed to happen and didn't.
Oh.
Indiana Jones and the Monkey King was one of the original titles they were going to go with, and he would battle a murderous ghost of Baron Seamus Seagrove III in Scotland. So that may have been the whole thing you're
I think that was
about.
it, yeah. And in fact, I think they wrote a version of that script, and I think Lucas was at the head of that, and then they basically were like, yeah, this is not it. So. Yeah.
An 8-page treatment, Lucas wrote.
Oh, okay,
there you go.
Back
in 84, so right after Temple of Doom, they were on it, but took a while to get going.
Yeah.
And the Fountain of Youth was worked in there at some point. Like, I've heard that forever, and the last two sequels came out without the Fountain of Youth. I guess maybe they thought the Grail was enough of...
I mean, technically, that's essentially what they sort of put onto the Cup of Christ, right? That, that you live forever, so...
Chris Columbus came in and wrote a script, changing the main artifact to the Garden of Immortal Peaches. I don't know what that is. Indy finds
that is a surprising, not great, and I love Chris Columbus, so that makes me a little sad.
In it, Indy finds a 200-year-old pygmy, and Nazis come for him. Eventually, Indy dies and is resurrected by the Monkey King. So there's a whole lot of stuff that didn't happen, and it sounds like it's okay that it didn't.
Yeah.
The script finally had a dude with a mechanical arm.
By the way, though, you can see the influence of that. I mean, his father gets shot, and is, close to death. Certainly, he, that raises the stakes for him to have to get the cup of Christ. And bring, so in some ways, it's interesting to see how these pieces of the story that were being developed at least influenced what we finally saw.
Indiana fights the undead in this movie. And they deemed it too unrealistic.
I mean, there was when we did Temple, that you were talking about how they could have drank the blood of Mola, whatever, the blood of what's the
Mola Ram. I don't know if it's his blood, but they drink some nasty
they drink the
blood.
Whatever they drink and that there was talk that they were going to make them into zombies or something like that. And
they
it's
keep
like,
wanting to do that, and then they go, maybe we shouldn't, and we're better for it.
Yes.
So I can't wait to see the zombies in Dial of Destiny.
Right.
Anyway.
Real quick, before we get into the next point, what I wanted to mention about another thing that came out of Dial of Destiny was they released a little snippet. What's the director's name?
James Mangold.
Mangold. They released a snippet, just sort of like some clips we've already seen with James Mangold and a couple of the other cast members, and
I think I've seen this,
yeah. And it's just a little promo thing, but it was nice. It was, I mean, he's talking about how much he loves Indiana Jones and how much this character means to him and stuff. You've said it, but I was a little concerned about Spielberg not doing this, and the more I see of him, I'm less concerned, and I'm more just excited about it all.
Mangold perhaps hasn't made a bad film, so I hope this isn't the first. But we also are taking any reviews coming out of France from like tuxedoed people in a hoity-toity event.
Yeah.
Bring it down to the people, and then we'll see what we think.
Yeah.
Menno Maius, I should say, who wrote The Color Purple, came through. He did revisions on the Holy Grail, Indy's father story. At one point, there was the Orient Express. There was a nun.
Now, the Orient Express stuff, I think they shot some stuff with that, because in the behind-the-scenes the movie I was watching, there's a moment that they show Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, and they're walking by this train, and I was like, I don't remember a train scene. I'm like, huh. So they shot something, and it just didn't end up in there.
Indy searches for Montezuma's death mask. See, there are so many things you could be. We should have 10 movies.
Yeah.
But I get Ford doesn't want to just keep playing Indy. But, the
Did he not want to keep playing Indy? Is that why we didn't end up with more movies during that? Or was it because Lucas was so focused on, like, doing the prequels? Because that would have been that time, right? It would have been, like, the 90s, basically. We would have gotten more Indiana Jones movies.
He comes out of Last Crusade, goes right into Presumed Innocent and Regarding Henry. Clearly, he wanted to do something different.
Right.
Then he gets into Jack Ryan and The Fugitive, and it's more his wheelhouse, even though it's not Indy.
Right.
So, but then Sabrina, so it seemed like I feel like he wanted to get back to that Mosquito Coast vibe he had, after Temple of Doom. And
speaking of getting back to things, one of the things in this behind-the-scenes piece that I enjoyed as well was they were talking about they wanted to get back to that feeling from Raiders. They wanted to get back to sort of the sense of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They kind of got away from that overall feeling with Temple of Doom.
So dark.
Yeah, Temple of Doom is just such a different movie in so many ways. I mean, obviously it's still our hero, and I love it, but and again, I know we talked about it last one. Like, it's a scarier movie. That is not the one that I would sit and watch on a Saturday afternoon again and again. Last Crusade, I would watch it again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. And Spielberg was so committed to returning to Indy, he had to drop out of Rain Man and Big.
Oh,
that's interesting. I mean, maybe if had an early talks, if not a commitment.
Yeah,
but still. But those would have been interesting. I think his sister wrote Big, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? I didn't know that.
And Spielberg, yeah.
By the way, did you know that Tom Hanks's brother is the one who does like almost all of his voice work? I had no idea. Yeah. So and if you hear, I've heard him in like interviews, and when he turns on his Tom Hanks, you're like, yeah, that's indiscernible.
Buzz! Yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, keep it in the family. Do it, man.
Yeah. How psyched to see him. What? I'm going to make money? I want a piece of that Hanks pie.
Right? Speaking of voices, too, Harrison Ford's voice. Another iconic aspect of him as a movie star.
Yeah.
He just has a resonance and a vocal placement that he could be like, oh, here's the phone book. And you're like, oh, my God, yes, this is the phone book. Like, I mean, it's just...
Have you seen Shrinking?
No, I
He's
haven't
so
yet.
great. For they lean into the grump, first
Yeah,
of all, which
yeah.
he is now. And he's just hilarious in that. He's always got, some snide, offhanded thing. He kind of says like this, and it gets a huge laugh.
I mean, it's awesome.
It's very funny.
Awesome.
Yeah, he is legend, of course. Elsewhere in the film, other legends. River Phoenix, we get to see before
my
he left us
gosh.
too soon.
Do you know how that came about?
They worked together in Mosquito Coast.
There it is.
Yeah.
Boom, baby.
Yeah. So, something came out of Mosquito Coast.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I guess it was Harrison Ford that went to Steven Spielberg, who said, "You know who looks the most like me when I was young? This actor, River Phoenix, I just did this film with. He looks the most like me."
Yeah.
And that's why they cast him.
And those
I'm
little
like,
moments,
yeah.
he has, everyone's lost but me. He's kind of got that Harrison Ford essence. It's great.
100%.
We mentioned Sean Connery, who plays Henry Jones Sr. What is the age difference between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery at this point?
I know this one.
Lay it on me.
12 years.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah.
But we buy it. You just throw the beard on him, especially when you whiten up his face like that.
Right.
You buy it.
Yeah.
Amanda Redman turned down the role of Elsa.
Amanda Redman. Who's that again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
IMDb said it was her fear of rats. But wouldn't that suck? You don't
That's
think an indie
interesting
film?
because
Today they'd CGI him. She'd be fine.
Right. The woman who ended up playing it said that was a big bone of contention in the audition process for her. They were like, "Are you okay with rats? Like, seriously, are you?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't care."
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of why
I'm fine with handled rats by handlers who've probably checked for disease. Not.
Do you know how they got those rats?
Explain.
They breeded them.
Oh yes.
2,000 rats they breeded so that they wouldn't have any disease or, anything like that. And Harrison Ford, as a young lad, apparently, I don't know, did some sort of nature work or whatever, had pet rats. So he was very comfortable around the rats. And he, at one point in the documentary, even says, "Yeah, rats have their own, they have personalities."
You got to get on that, Harrison. Yeah, but they take away what's nasty about skunks. They're adorable too. It's just these animals, poor animals, have like bats. Couldn't be more helpful to the environment. They eat all the bugs, but everyone thinks they're going to kill me and make me a vampire.
Yeah.
1,000 mechanical rats were set on fire when eventually you got to torch the whole place.
Right.
And get to the gravestone. What else? Oh,
that is a really cool sequence.
Yeah.
Watching that again, I was like, wow. And one
It's
thing
got to be something creepy crawly to wig you out. Spiders, bugs. Now we have rats.
Oh, yeah. At one point, Spielberg says, "Yeah, apparently we have no shame." Like, it's just no shame. Yeah. What's interesting, though, is like, watching it again, hearing some of the dialogue, there's a moment where, his father is asking him, like, "Did you see Sir Richard? You saw him and all this stuff." He's so excited, and they have this, like, very reverent music. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, he flipped over the tomb and, like, pulled the body out and went inside.
Yeah.
I don't know how reverent it was, but
You got to do what you got to do. Julian Glover did an American accent playing Donovan because he didn't take my advice. But I think it's pretty good. He was not proud of it.
He was not proud of it,
Yeah.
and he even said when he auditioned, he said, "I did a terrible American accent." And then I got the job, and I had no idea. And he was surprised that he even got the opportunity to audition for that role. And I didn't know that he was in Empire Strikes Back.
I figured that would get you a lock for an opportunity.
Right? I mean, so cool. But I love the idea
George,
that
it's me.
Right.
Jules, let me in.
But I love the idea that he had this like smaller role in Empire Strikes Back. He did a great job in that role. And they bring him in, and then like, actually, this is like the main bad guy. And you're like, what? That's awesome, Yeah.
And Alison Doody, by the way, who did end up playing Elsa, look for her in RRR.
Oh.
It was fun to see her again in something.
That's awesome.
That crazy movie that won the Best Song Oscar. That 3-hour epic action thing is crazy. It's great.
Beautiful actress. Yeah. I thought she was fantastic in Last Crusade. I mean, I bought her performance. I love what she did with it, and she did a great job. Irish actress, I believe.
She talks in her sleep.
It's such a great. I mean, all of that. I mean, that was. I loved all of that. Apparently, George needed some convincing on that storyline. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Come on. Laurence Olivier may have played the Grail Knight. This is a rumor I've heard, But would that have been distracting if you get in the and there's Laurence Olivier?
It's like to be or not to be. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But he was
I think it
ill.
would be distracting. Actually, Sean Connery talked about the actor, and unfortunately I don't know his name, who played the Knight, but he talked about him, and he was like, that actor brought such a depth to that moment and that character that you just really believe like everything he and then he lands jokes, he chose poorly. I mean that beat right before. I mean, come on, it's brilliant.
I even for a second at my young age, I went. This when they arrive and there's a Grail Knight there. I went, this is a little hokey, but the guy pulls it off. The guy lures you in, and the guy plays it well.
And I love the moment where he's like, "I've got to fight him," and then he just whoop.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm 500 or whatever.
It's great. Yeah. It's so great. I love it.
And you would say, as an actor, Sean, when you audition, you book the room, right? Book the room. If the casting director's there and he doesn't hire you, book him so he calls you back on their side.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, 100%. I mean, it's relationships, yes.
Michael Sheard played Admiral Ozzel in The Empire Strikes Back, and he played a U-boat captain in Raiders, and he plays Hitler in Last Crusade. Book the room.
Yeah.
Because he never was Indiana Jones. He kept working.
I mean, that's a lesson for every actor and young actor in our industry that, is out there. Yes, book the room. Make, you don't have to be the best friend, but you can be friendly. And they'll all, even if you go, I think even if you go in and you don't do a great audition, but they like you, a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, that guy had a bad day. That guy was off today. Whatever. They'll bring you back if you're not a jerk, I think.
Well, Kevork Malikian plays Kazim, of the Brother of the Cruciform Sword, has the huge fight on the boats.
Oh, yes, I love him.
He might have been Sala, he said, if not for a traffic jam keeping him from auditioning. Would he have gotten it? Who knows? But can you imagine not making that audition and then this becomes a huge movie? So, again, whenever he got there,
came back.
Somehow he ended up in front of him. So
and what a great role. I mean, he has like a full storyline, a full arc, ends up dying. Arc.
Yeah. That's one of the best lines in the whole movie. Those are for whose glory do you seek the Grail? For his or for yours? It's a great line. But we can't talk much longer without talking about John Williams. I mean, the guy does not go to sleep, and anything going back to Temple of Doom, I mean, like, must have had 10 new themes in that. Same here. We got a new Nazi march. We got all sorts of new stuff. And from action music to emotional music, and, there's very little retreading. And when it's time for that classic Indy theme, he gives it to us. He doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Speaking of the Nazis, did you know that the uniforms are mainly like real uniforms?
I did know that.
Yeah. I had no idea.
That's all creepy, actually.
It's really, really disconcerting. Like, once you hear that and then you see the scene, you're like, wow, this is... Well, there's that. I just want to run through Robert Watt's first 7 credits. So imagine having this as your first 7 credits of your career. Meetings with Remarkable Men. Okay, he's producer. The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the Jedi, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Woof! I mean, come on.
Let's get that guy a household name. Robert Watts. All right,
Robert Watts.
Put that in your mouth.
I mean, we talked about it on the last episode, but the unsung heroes on film and television shows, the people that other people don't talk about. And since we're in the middle of a writer's strike, I mean, screenwriters in particular, right? How many screenwriters are household names? But you certainly know director names, right?
Most of the screenwriters you know are the directors.
Yes.
Oh, Tarantino's a great screenwriter, but he's also a director.
Right.
Right on down.
Yeah. But especially for streaming, like, streaming and television, that's a writer's genre. You're screwed without great writing.
No computer is writing the finale to Ted Lasso that I just saw.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Fun little fact. True or not, I'd have to go back and watch the clip. But apparently when Donovan, his wife interrupts Donovan's speech with Indy and wants him to return to the party, the piano music in the background is a lounge version of the Imperial March. Just a little... No.
Oh my gosh! I have to go back and.
Supposedly,
it's like, gosh!
You're supposed to go. Oh, should we trust this guy? But of course, it's all playing without announcing itself, which is really fun.
I have to go back and listen to that. Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Any other facts, figures, etc. to bring up? Otherwise, I'm going to move into Aftermath.
Just a couple little tidbits. I thought it was cool. They built the tank for the movie, which I had no idea.
Every time I need to test out a new home theater system, actually, I haven't bought a new home theater system in a long time, but every time I've moved, which is a handful in LA, that's one of the scenes I bring out to test it. I bring out the tank sequence. I bring out the Saving Private Ryan, in France, whatever, Normandy,
gosh,
the Normandy.
yes.
And then I bring out one of the early Harry Potter sequences. What's the game they play?
Quidditch.
Quidditch. I'm putting out a Quidditch scene.
Nice.
But that tank sequence, from all the gunshots to the tank fire, just to the crunch and crackle of the tank over the gravel, and then it turns and all its mechanical wheezing and wheeling, and then the punches, and it's just the whip and everything. It's so great.
Two things about that scene.
Ben Burt, ladies and gentlemen.
Two other things about that scene. One, it wasn't really in the script. Spielberg basically storyboarded it, and they came up with the idea for that entire. They wanted to have this action sequence, and so it was all just storyboarded and that's what they were using as a reference for that entire. They're like, okay, we got that, we need this, we got that. I mean, it was just that kind of a thing, which is again just speaks to the brilliance of this entire team, right? That they got all of this stuff. That's one. The second one is Indiana Jones' hat. Of course, we all know and love, kept flying off, right? He's riding on the horse, flies off, He staples it to his head.
I've seen that clip, yeah.
I mean, he takes a stapler and just... And then he looks at the camera and goes, that ought to do it.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah,
I'm like,
it's a great bit.
that is just someone who is... we talked about it last time. He's so committed. He's so committed, and he's so fearless. One other quick story that I thought was fun and funny with Sean Connery and Harrison Ford. The sequence on the Zeppelin when they're when they have the father-son moment, and Dad, you weren't there, and and let's talk now, all that stuff, right? Apparently,
I think I know what you're gonna say. Was it hot?
It was hot, and because it was supposed to be like a wintry kind of thing, there were people in fur coats in the background and stuff like that. So Sean Connery did the scene with no trousers on. And Harrison Ford was like, "Are you not going to wear trousers? Like, you're going to put on some trousers, right?" And he's like, "No, if I put on trousers, like I sweat a lot. We're going to keep stopping. No, I'm not going to put on trousers." So then Harrison Ford did not wear trousers as well, which I think is fantastic. And honestly, it's up there with like an acting exercise, right? It's a yes and. It's literally just I'm not going to do it either. I mean, yeah.
Well, and then after that, I thought this was literally it. They literally rode off into the sunset.
Yep.
But 19 years later, of course, there was another Indy adventure. And now 15 years after that, there's another. Wow, that's, again, you're making me sad for how many could-have-beens are out there. But
especially in the 90s. I feel like that would have been the time, especially during, that was... Because when did Jurassic Park come out?
93.
Yeah. So that would have been the time when CG was just getting, acceptable. What else could we have explored, especially with Ford at that time, still youthful.
And he turned down Alan Grant, so he wasn't going to play that.
Yeah.
But so they should have done Indy. Yeah. But instead we got Sabrina. You're welcome. But also, Star Wars and Marvel fans, you don't know how good you've got it. We have to wait a whole 3 months for Secret Invasion. Yeah, okay, wait 3 months. 3 months!
Right.
15 years we waited between indie movies. The novelization was included in the New York Times bestseller list. No toys were released, but 3 video games. By 2008, Hasbro released toys in conjunction with Crystal Skull. I think one of them is here behind me.
I don't think in our last episode for Temple of Doom, we talked about the Temple of Doom game. Which, did you ever play that as a kid?
Game.
The video game. Kalima will rule the world.
We walk from here.
I mean, I absolutely loved that game
it was great.
so much as a kid. And I wish it was available. Apparently, there's a version that's available on Android phones, but you cannot get it on any other platform. But I love that.
Isn't it crazy that, and it's probably the game.
Yeah.
It's probably not, well, we made a phone version. No, we pulled it out of that giant arcade game from the 80s.
Yeah.
And now we can run it on a phone
now
and it's full strength.
It's a downloadable. It's 800 kilobytes. So,
Yeah. 37 million was a record for the Memorial Day 4-day weekend when it opened. The Saturday gross was the first time a film made over 10 million in one day, so some records being broken.
Wow.
And Ghostbusters 2 broke that record, though, by making more in its opening 3-day weekend. 50 million was a record-breaking 7-day gross, breaking the record of Temple of Doom. So Indy still just breaking records and having fun at the box office. 19 days was a record to 100 million. 6 weeks at number 1 in the UK. But what do the critics think? 88% at Rotten Tomatoes, so that's not too bad. Because most of the time, critics, the lines don't cross.
No, it's very rarely.
No line
yeah.
there.
What is I'd be curious to know what the reaction is on a more worldwide kind of scale. Does this character play as well in other countries, or is it just a good, is it just an American movie that got released and, I don't know.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, going back to that box office, 474.2 million gross worldwide, and only 200 of that is domestic. So that's more in. Of course, there's more of world than the U.S. But it has appeal.
It makes me want to see a French dub. I don't know why. I'm just curious. I want to know who the French guy is that's doing Indiana Jones.
Like Harrison Ford said at the speaking of France at Cannes, they must have played some montage of his career, and he's like, "They say right before you die, your life flashes before your eyes."
Oh,
I just saw that, but I got one more movie for you to see. Then he introduced Dial of Destiny.
Oh wow, wow.
Last Crusade wins an Oscar, Best Sound Effects Editing. Ben Burtt and Richard Himes.
I'm, as we've covered all of these and hearing Ben Burtt's name again and again when we did Countdown to 9, and of course this, so well deserving. And talk about someone who, is in the behind the scenes world, but has gotten the accolades that he so deserves. Just anyway.
You get the chance to go to the Motion Picture Academy.
Oh yeah, you've talked about
that 25-minute film, and watch that for sure. That he made called Behold.
Oh yeah,
which is great.
I need to check that. I need to check that out. Yeah, for sure.
Let me know.
Yeah.
I'll remember. I'll go with you.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Nominated for Best Sound as well and Original Score. So even when he's repurposing some themes, he creates enough new stuff to be better than most things out there and get a nomination in John Williams for Best Score. But he lost to Alan Menken, who was starting his Disney run, which was not to be trifled with.
Right.
When he won for that, and then he wins for Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, and I think Pocahontas, right? And to just forget it was a stupid run he had.
Right.
It's got like 10 Oscars.
Another well-deserved thing.
Oh, he's so amazing, yeah.
Connery
Connery got a Golden Globe nod for supporting actor. Say what you want about the Globes, but they spread the love, and we'll recognize something like that. Everyone will tell you how great Connery is in this movie. There's tons of people who couldn't tell you who actually might have won that year.
Right.
The prologue inspired Lucas to create the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which we mentioned. Connery retired in 2008, though Spielberg wanted him for Crystal Skull. But he went out on the wrong movie, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Come back and do one more. They all do that. Hackman's last movie, Welcome to Mooseport. Nicholson's, How Do You Know? These are not their best movies. No. They need to go out on a higher note.
I wonder, I know that Connery not being involved in Crystal Skull changed the storyline. I wonder what it would have, what that movie would have been had he been in it, and would that have saved it? I don't know, because it is certainly the least favorite in general.
Karen Allen came back and didn't help. So
no,
I can't wait to talk about that one.
Oh, I'm excited. That's why I'm so excited to really revisit that one, because I want to see if I still really do feel like I don't care for it as much as I think I won't.
Petra, where the Grail is at the end of the film, is a location in Jordan. Visitors from there went from a few thousand a year to almost 1 million annually. People wanted to check out where the Holy Grail was.
Wow.
Douglas Slocum, this would be his last film, although he didn't die until 2016 at 103 years old, but this was his last movie.
Oh, so he retired with this one. Yeah.
See, he did it right. He went out on
I went on a big
Crusade.
one. Talk about, again, just someone who made it look simple. We talked about that in Temple of Doom, but he's just so consistent. And you know what I liked about all of the camera work in those three films is It's beautiful, it's subtle, and you don't notice it. I mean, there's some shots like from Raiders, when they're digging into the tomb, that I mean that image, I mean, oh my goodness, what an amazing image. And it's just captured. I mean, I know there's an optical in there too, but like that's amazing. And then, literally them riding off into the sunset with Last Crusade, which again, by the way, I after seeing that again, I'm like, Crystal Skull's biggest challenge is, did it need to exist? Because we rode off into the sunset, literally. So, I don't know.
This one's PG-13. Thanks, Temple of Doom. At 100, at 127 minutes, Last Crusade is the longest, but doesn't feel it.
Not at all. Not at all. Oh, there's an interesting scene that got cut. When he leaves, when he climbs out of the window at the school, at the university, and then those guys kind of sort of surround him a little bit. Like he goes to walk to his car or something, and there's like a bunch of guys that kind of surround him. And those guys were really supposed to be like Donovan's henchmen. Like they were supposed to take out guns and then like take them. And there was even a scene before Donovan comes in where they're like in the room and like kind of, So, and of course all that got cut, which was very wise because they weren't supposed to. They should have never come off. I mean, because then it's like, that's the tell right there. Yeah, he's the bad guy. He just kidnapped you. I mean, so anyway.
Then he could just in the party just be going dun 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 dun. Don't even be subtle about it. Right? He's a bad guy. Dun, 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 be aware. Yeah. All right. Well, listen. That wraps Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I think we should probably call it there. There's much more we could say about all these films, but hopefully we filled your head with interesting facts and. You were a little jostled by the joy we have for these films, so you can get excited for the new one. We're going to try and hold that over into Crystal Skull. We'll see what happens.
Yes, indeed.
But that is the film yet to talk about here on the show before June 30th gets here. Then, of course, we'll be back with our final show after we see The Dial of Destiny.
Yes, with a very special guest I'm very excited about. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. You can find me on Instagram at Creative Motion Entertainment, or you can head to my website, same name. Be sure to chime in with your thoughts at themovieguys.net, at countdown-to-5show@gmail.com, or on social media, which includes facebook.com/countdown-to-5, at countdown-to-5 on Instagram, and at countdown-to-5show, that's the number 2, the number 5, show on Twitter. And, of course, you can get the show on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and, of course...
iHeartRadio. Yes.
It's all over the
Deezer,
place. Be sure to go to themovieguys.net. That's where you can
dogs
get it there.
And cats living together.
Mass hysteria. Yeah. Oh, you can check out all the old episodes of Countdown to 9. And if you get a chance, please watch the show on YouTube. It's great. We shoot at 3 camera. It's us chatting. Sometimes we do some visual bits. And, of course, all of our recaps are with these old home movies from Indiana Jones himself. Yeah. So, I think you're really missing out if you're not tuning in. If you're not tuning in and watching it at least once on YouTube, because, of course, you should watch these and listen to these multiple times to get all of the information you really need. Yeah.
Yes, I do. And I was in it, and I do. And, of course, go to themovieguys.net for all your movie stuff. Everything from Adam Witt and I going to the red carpet of John Wick 4 and doing some interviews, to the Ford Fiesta, which we're covering every Harrison Ford movie. The next one we're going to post about is Witness. That should be coming soon.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, that's good.
And... oh, boy, what a great rewatch, too. Just a skillful thriller. Peter Weir is a fantastic director. Not surprised he did a couple movies. Ford did a couple movies with him.
Awesome. And if you're looking for, media production, both Paul and I, we've got our companies. He's got Digital Mind Productions. I've got Creative Motion Entertainment. Boutique little agencies, but we're also doing lots of marketing and advertising and social media management for people. So all kind of fabulous stuff. Thanks again for watching and or listening. I find The Last Crusade to be a fun and energetic action movie with a strong relationship in the center. What did you find, Paul?
Me? Illumination.